welcome. Today, Ollie and I are delighted to be joined by Sophie Parker, Head of Talent at Pure Data Centres Group. Over the past few years, Sophie has not just scaled a talent function, she's earned recognition for doing it. She's recently named a 2025 We Are the City Rising Star for her standout work in people leadership, as well as previously being featured in the iMasons 100 Award, which honours the top 100 individuals pushing innovation, inclusion, excellence in the digital infrastructure space. So in this episode, we'll dig into Sophie's journey from retail through to managing talent in high growth tech environments, and we'll explore talent challenges, opportunities, what's keeping her up at night, as well as finding out who's influenced her career and leadership approach over the years. Sophie, thank you for joining us and welcome to Capstone Talent Talks.
Thank you so much for having me.
Let's start with the beginning of your professional career. So you am I right in thinking that the Boots management route was your way in?
Yeah, proper job. Yeah, so I did the retail graduate management scheme with Boots, which was a real baptism of fire. I was straight into one of the flagship stores in Merseyside. There was 300 staff and it was Christmas. And it was brilliant.
Wow.
It was brilliant, but it was a real baptism of fire.
The initial test, throwing you into a graduate role during the Christmas season in retail.
Yes, it was a lot of fun. I learned a lot there. It was never something I thought I would do forever. It's something that I thought would give me a great set of core skills in terms of understanding big organizations, working with other people, and what really became the nugget that I wasn't expecting was the learning that as part of Boots, you move around to a lot of stores. It's one of the ways that they help keep the ideas fresh and keep you learning. So I'd been in quite a lot of different sizes of stores and different locations. What I found from that was the success of the store was based on how well the team were looked after. I wasn't expecting to see that, but the difference in terms of the feel of the store that I went into and that I took over really shone a light for me on those conditions in which people thrive and the business impact of that. So that's been a brilliant foundation for me that's probably fed through my natural approaches to all of the steps along my career to today.
So when you say awareness, when you say how they were looked after, you mean from a leadership perspective?
Yeah, where people take the time to know them and invest in them and really create that environment where they are happy to come to work, they feel supported, they are enjoying what they're doing, even if what that is could be a really mundane task, they feel great about it. And one of the things they taught us there was to look after the people, to look after the customers. Mm-hmm. And I think that's true everywhere, and a lesson that I was really, really pleased to learn, actually.
And I think the sales process at somewhere like Boots is a bit more consultative, actually, in many ways, isn't it?
Exactly.
And so if you've got that store manager mm-hmm. who's making everyone feel valued and part of that team, and then actually that then just bleeds through, doesn't it, in terms of that service that the customer receives?
Exactly, because your expectation for your team is they're going to go above and beyond. Whatever that customer wants to know, if we don't have it, it's never a simple no, sorry, I can't help. There's always suggestions given about where somebody could go to find it. It reminds me a bit of the Miracle on 34th Street movie, where the Father Christmas, who's absolutely incredible, if they can't sell it at that department store, they tell them where they can go or get it for a better price. It's the idea that people can really trust you. You become a trusted advisor. And when you think about your teams, it's exactly the same thing. By knowing who they are and, who are they outside of work, what's important to them, taking the time to ask them about that before they go and do, a really potentially very tiring and long shift makes a difference. Prioritize things like sorting out their holidays. They are the things that really make a huge difference. And I think if we create those conditions where people can thrive, the business takes care of itself.
So how did you transition from, because you obviously learned a lot of leadership mm-hmm. Skills and qualities and, good practice. during your time there. Is that what kind of underpinned was it a purposeful move into learning and development and talent, or is it accidental? It was purposeful.
Well, it was quite accidental. I didn't realize that was what I was really passionate about. I think it's only with hindsight that you can see that there's a really common thread to the decisions that you make throughout your career. I learned through that's what I was really good at, seeing people and understanding them and being able to support them to be their best. I have a natural optimistic approach to people in the assumption that everybody has got incredible talent and incredible potential. It's about putting them in the right place and giving them the right conditions. And the easiest way I find to kind of describe that is thinking about people as plants in your garden. Some people need a certain type of soil, certain type of sunshine, and people don't want to be described as plants. But I think it's the perfect way of really seeing, what the difference is for that individual and making sure they have the right support around them, but also the right opportunities and space. So yeah, learning and development was an accidental discovery. After I left Boots, I went on to eventually become a head of quality. So I joined a business kind of by accident. It happened to be in the data center industry. I didn't know what the industry was. I saw, the coolest office that was local to me that did yoga classes twice a week, had a gym, took the team on ski trips and had a bar and beer Fridays. And at that stage of my life, that unconventional fun seemed like a brilliant place that I'd want to be. I didn't know anything about data centers or technology really at that point. I just knew that I wanted to help people get better at looking after customers. So as part of my role there, I created a function which we call the quality department. And the focus there was on improving the performance of our customer facing teams. So lots of performance coaching and again, making sure people were supported to go above and beyond for our customers. It was a wild place to work in many ways. But my key sort of takeaway from there was that culture wasn't an afterthought. And it enticed me in, possibly as a bit of a fun, mad place to be. But that intentional culture of getting people together in teams to do specific tasks and to work out and work on our physical health had such a huge impact on us being a high performance team. And it's one of those other things that I think people don't really think about or see. We bring teams together and we just expect them to be able to be brilliant without thinking about what is that environment and culture we're creating to allow them to thrive.
Yeah. And so they obviously did that really, really well. So you got the leadership aspect from Boots, the culture impact from your first kind of foray into the data center world. How did you come to be at Pure and bring those together?
So there's a lovely bit in between there, which I think is always a bit of my career that I find myself talking about a lot, but it's really where I began to realize what my special skills were. So whilst I was looking at that performance improvement and how can we help these people be better, what I learned was the key differentiator between those top performers. It wasn't the technical skills. It wasn't that they knew our products in a certain way. It was the soft skills. It was their ability to communicate, collaborate, and their emotional intelligence. So what I did as part of my role there was created a soft skills curriculum to go alongside our apprentices' technical training. And that is where I've really got a flavour and a taste for creating curriculums and having a more strategic approach to improving people. It wasn't just about improving the one conversations then. It was about how can I take this individual and give them the core skills that traditionally we've never really been taught, and it's luck of the draw whether you happen to be able to articulate your ideas. And it worked brilliantly. Like many of those apprentices now run departments, some of them are running their own business. And I really think that's the difference. When I think about talent, it's not technical understanding, because you can learn that. It's the bit that we forget to teach people, which is how do I actually articulate my thoughts and ideas in a way that will influence others. So along the same time as creating that curriculum, I was also volunteering at Girl Guides. So I'd moved to a new area and wanted to be a positive influence in the community. So I thought spending my Monday evenings with 30 10-year-olds would be a good way to do that. And
it's a leveler.
it was an experience. And what I found there was I was going from being in this really sort of high performance, high tech, digital data center world by day to a quiet, rundown church hall, talking to a group of kids about the royal wedding and things that maybe have cultural significance in this country, but aren't the things that are going to drive their careers forward and make them, the powerhouses that room of girls could be. So I managed to convince my employer at the time to sponsor a Girl Guide digital challenge badge. And so I worked with a number of our different engineers and asked them to help me create tasks that could be done in a rundown church hall with no technical equipment that bring to life the variety of different roles in the data center industry, technical roles. So we had all sorts of things like, we acted out a play of what happens when you send a selfie to your friend. And we had people running around the room as different data packets and then sellotaping stuff back together. It really broke it down in a way that helped bring the fun of the industry to life. Over that course of the year, we had 300 Girl Guides come into the business, and I ran a bit of an evening workshop for them to give them that taste of, wow, look at the slide, look at all of these cool things that are available to you if you lean into them STEM subjects, if they appeal to you. And then that was it. I got what I cared about. It was, how do I get these underrepresented groups in the industry, and how do I help us kind of create those pathways in, that aren't the obvious, rocking up to the school and telling them, here's my job, which are really important. But that was just something a little bit different that I think worked really nicely. So when it came around to me interviewing for Pure, I had a brilliant conversation with Dame Dawn. And this leads quite nicely into my sort of broader thoughts around talent and how we look at it. So Dawn was interviewing a head of quality for a training manager role. She could quite easily have looked at that and gone, this person isn't going to be the right person for this role. Let's not even have the conversation. Time to understand, what is it that I'd actually done? There's all the transferable skills that meant that I could come straight in and totally smash that role.
It's so interesting that as well,
That's
because
amazing.
we talk so much at the moment around the broader educational piece of actually trying to get across to the public actually what data centers do and their role in society and how critical they are. And you walk down any street in the country pretty much, unless it's maybe in Slough, and a lot of people are going to have a difficulty in articulating what a data center is or describing it. And then you sort of go back and actually think about and younger people and actually their awareness of it and understanding of it, and to put something like that in place, when you did in that way, I mean, that's the sort of game-changing initiative that we kind of need a lot more of. Is brilliant.
Yeah, I was really lucky at the time. I was working with some incredible people. One of those, Aaron Saxton, who's now the CEO of the Dame Robina Shah Foundation. He was our director of education, and in 2018, he made sure that we saw 60,000 students across Greater Manchester in one year. So the educational outreach that I was exposed to and part of there was massive. It was really tactical, and I think it helped us get a lot of people from those underrepresented audiences into our apprenticeships. But I really think that was a huge win for me. Being around that normalized it and made going out and doing something like that seem like a totally normal thing to do. So yes, he's a great influence.
What I love about that is that you brought the kind of softer skills element to people coming into the apprenticeship piece, but you then worked on more of the kind of technical education, or bringing something invisible to life with the next generation of people coming in. But you obviously also worked in an environment who absolutely valued that broader, less instant commercial result approach, which is absolutely amazing to have that exposure. And have you been able to bring that merging of influences from the leadership piece to the cultural piece to the softer skills piece to the, you know, the kind of talent pipelining education piece? How are you bringing all of that together at Pure?
So Pure is another one of those environments where ideas are encouraged and we come across problems regularly, and rather than just seeing them, we find a way that we can solve them. And I think there's a lot of noise in the industry about, you know, we've got this sort of shortage of talent, and I don't think that it's a shortage of talent. I think it's a shortage of how we view it, and I guess the imagination and the curiosity we're bringing to it. So the example of my career, me coming into Pure, Dawn was able to see my skill set rather than my job title. What we're really good at doing at Pure is trying to solve those problems. So we now have educational outreach that we do because we know that works and is helpful. It's also really nice to do as a data center part of the community. It's, you know, we want to be a data center that does good. So helping expose local people to the careers that are available is really helpful. We also have gone last year to the STEM Women graduate career fairs to further try and attract some of that underrepresented talents. And I think we're really good at sort of seeing things in different ways. It's not just here's a standard problem, we can't do anything about that. It's definitely an environment where you can bring great ideas and challenge the status quo, which I think is really important, particularly when we think about hiring managers. It's not a case that, you know, you want a maintenance technician, therefore they must have done that very specific role in our exact industry. Having the courage and the conviction to challenge that and say, but what is the actual skill set that you need of that person? I think I'm able to do that in a way. I'm able to view roles in terms of the skill sets rather than the years of experience.
What you're saying is it's not actually a talent shortage so much as a talent short-sightedness.
Exactly.
Potentially.
Exactly.
And I suppose if you're looking at the demand of the data center industry and the talent pool, you literally cannot deliver what you need to deliver without looking at, you know, without having a different pair of glasses on.
Exactly.
So I suppose one thing I'm interested in is, what do you think from a talent perspective are the biggest risks and equally opportunities when it comes to talent?
So I was reading recently the Lovelace report that We Are Tech Women and Oliver Wyman released, and that was talking about the largest opportunity and the largest risk for us is keeping the talent that we already have. I think as an industry, we are getting much better at attracting, and we put a lot of time and investment into attracting people into the industry. But their report highlighted that 40,000 women leave their roles and the industry each year. That's a huge pool of talent, and these are mid-career talent. These aren't, you know, fresh, they don't know what they're doing. There's a huge amount of skill there. And interestingly, only 3% of that was due to caring responsibilities. I think too often we assume, oh, women are leaving because, you know, they've got young children or they don't want to have these promotion opportunities, which is absolutely not the case. There's a long list of suggestions in that report about how we can address that. And I think for us, we need to look at how we retain our talent. Because you're right that there is a pool of talent, and we will very quickly run out of that talent unless we look more broadly and explore those very similar roles, very similar industries. But first, I think we need to reflect on what do we do as businesses that makes people want to stay with us, but also makes them want to stay in the industry. There's things like sponsorship, making sure that high impact work is distributed fairly. But I would suggest that people go and look at that HR data and see where are they losing people in their business. Because if we're bringing loads of people in the front door, but the back door's wide open, we're just going to forever be on this cycle where we don't really fix the issue.
Yeah, because I mean,
Yeah.
salary is just one part of it, isn't it? Obviously, and then it's meaningful work, it's development, it's progression, it's values, it's the it's the culture of the organization. And you go back to what you were saying at the beginning with regards to Boots, and how those individual teams are meant to how they feel about themselves, how they feel as a team, and how that means they're then able to kind of bring that into the role. It's interesting to sort of come back to that, but then put that in the context of where you are at the moment, or the industry
Absolutely.
more broadly, rather.
Absolutely. And I think when we look at the industry, that when we think about the fact that people are retiring later, so the average retirement age in the UK is now 66 apparently, but in data centers 1 in 5 of our employees is already over 55. So we're really close now to having 5 generations working side by side. And there's a lot of upside that can come with that. All of those seasoned engineers can pass on all of the decades of knowledge, and the younger team members can bring in those sort of fresh approaches and their skills in automation and AI. But there's a big watch out there where if we don't actively share and capture that knowledge, we're risking losing critical expertise in a huge proportion just as demand is rising. Something that we're doing at Pure next year to help with that is setting up a reverse mentoring program. I think that's such a fantastic way to engage people and get them seeing the skill sets that each other have across generations. There's a huge risk there. If we just ignore it, if we just ignore the fact that everyone's going to retire, all the women are going to leave, we can talk, in all of the schools about how great it is to come to the industry, but there's two real risk factors there.
Yeah, you're filling an empty bucket. You're filling a bucket that's already got holes in it. So
exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So it's that revolving door piece. So if you look at the retention, what is it that's, because presumably from a talent perspective, I'm not a head of talent like you are, but you've got an attraction piece and you've got a retention piece, and presumably a pipelining. What is it that keeps you up at night from any kind of strands of that topic?
Keeps me up at night is my 2-year-old daughter.
Asking you what a data center is.
Yes, she is very
Okay, okay, I'll rephrase it. What's the big, I had that last night as well. I'll rephrase that. What's the biggest headache or challenge that you've got that is your top priority as head of talent?
Helping people view roles in terms of a set of skills rather than the version of a person they think will be successful in that. We all have a natural bias of we've worked with this person before, or I know somebody who studied this particular thing will be good at this. But the challenge for me is helping people break through that and see the skills that I need from somebody to be successful in this, whilst also looking at their current team makeup. There's diversity of thought needed if we're going to solve the complex problems that we are trying to solve as a business, as an industry. There's always interesting challenges, but if everyone sat around the table has already worked at the same business, already done all of the same challenges, there's only going to be one answer. And something I'm really passionate about is helping people break through that, be very intentional about the teams they are creating around them, and not falling into the trap of I must hire somebody who's done a near identical role in a near identical world. We don't necessarily need that, particularly if you consider how quickly our industry is changing. The technology is changing all the time. We need some freshness to that. And I don't think everyone's caught up with that yet.
Yeah, I mean that diversity of thought, as you've just said, that speed of change with everything at the moment, to look 5 years down the line and think, okay, well actually this is about problem solvers and people that have got an open mind, and can bring new ideas to the table to kind of help deliver on those sorts of things. I suppose the interesting thing is, how do you tease that out? In terms of, you've obviously got a CV in front of you, and you can clearly see, okay, this is where they've worked and this is kind of what they've done, and so therefore it may or may not kind of fit with what the hiring manager's looking for and so on. But then in terms of getting through what you sort of feel actually they're bringing more to the table here actually that we need to consider, how do you tease that out typically?
I think it's just smart questioning. Getting people to question themselves is really important. There's no complicated way of solving this. We just have to give ourselves the time to think, and sometimes have somebody give you some probing questions and sit you in silence. I did an executive coaching course last year, which really helped me with that. I'm great at big open questions.
Oh, I want to hear about that. One of my questions was going to be around, how do you challenge yourself to think differently, to to explore different avenues and look through different lenses, as it were. And I was really keen to hear about your exec coaching, because you're clearly passionate about all of that. How has that supported your personal growth, but also underpinned your day-to-day professional growth?
Doing that course has really helped me be a much better listener. In the past, people would have probably said I was a good listener, and I would have thought I was a good listener. But what I actually was doing was solving people's problems for them and not giving them the time and the silence answers. And if people have their own answers, they're already emotionally invested in doing it the way that they thought would be best for them, rather than me say, oh, have you tried it this way? And I think having coaching conversations with people really unlocks the potential within them. They see that actually they do have answers and ideas, and that feeds back into that whole diversity of thought piece. We can't just have loud leaders who say this is the way we should do things. We need to ask everybody in the room how they think we should do things. And then different personalities come to play. Some people need to reflect on that. Some people come back to you later. I think it's okay to ask broad questions and leave them there for people. That's been my biggest learning with it, is I'm much better at listening now. And whilst I will always want to solve everybody's problems and have 100 ideas of how we can do things, I have discovered that's not the best way to lead people or also to influence others.
And I suppose that process might take a little bit longer, perhaps, because you're having those conversations, and some people come forward straight away with, an immediate thought or answer or whatever it might be, and then other people, as you say, need to take that away, sit with it, and then come back the following day. And I suppose that might mean that process takes a little bit longer, but ultimately you're arriving at at an end result that's had a bit more of a kind of collective input.
Exactly. It's that the intent is then there from that individual because they've given it the thought, rather than when we make change happen to people, it's always very uncomfortable. Whereas if we let people feel in control of change, it's very smooth and very comfortable. And that goes back to those ideas about creating conditions in which people thrive. People have to feel like they are part of it. And interestingly, when I speak to a lot of our talent within Pure, one of the key things that they talk about why they stay here is the ability to influence what we do. People have voices here, and people listen. And I think when we think about the generational shift, more people coming in from a younger cohort of people, the driving the driving values for those individuals is mission and purpose is becoming even more important to them. So being able to be part of the conversation, I think, is crucial in getting people really emotionally invested. If you want someone to perform at their best, they're more likely to do that if they are part of it. Whether you go with their idea or not is by the by, but you've invited them to contribute, and you've given them the space to think and reflect, and that's how we help people grow.
So it's almost slowing down in order to speed up.
Exactly.
That's really interesting. And I think if you are naturally a fixer, you just want to make it better immediately, or, oh, I know, why don't you do that, and that, and bam. But you're right, actually, what have they learned? What have they developed in themselves by you giving them their answer? Presumably that's the logic behind the, not jumping in.
Exactly. Ask them what they think.
I'd literally have to sit on my hands. Like,
and I did for a lot of the practice during the course. So it was quite an in-depth course, and they got us to practice this. We had to practice it with other people on the course, and yeah, I did have to do that a lot, bite my tongue and hold back, but it was very quick to realize the difference in the quality of the answer that person was giving. Absolutely convinced straight away. That was the way I needed to lead.
Really? I'm going to take that away.
Yeah. There's a brilliant book I would recommend, Time to Think by Nancy Klein. That is a fab read to help you understand that. Yeah, it really goes into the details and the statistics around the psychology of people feeling like they're part of it. It's brilliant.
Less haste, more speed, or whatever it might be. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I'll be downloading that later. I'm a massive believer that throughout our careers, we don't necessarily know it at the time, but there are big influences. It might be a personal event, or it might be a work event, or it might be a person. I'm really interested in what that is for each person and how that has then underpinned how you practice moving forward. So I'm keen on who your biggest influences have been, or you've obviously touched on that a bit already, but whether that be a person or a moment in time.
So as you were saying that, my mum came to mind, and what she used to say to me when I was younger was, "Did you try?" Whenever it came to any school test results, she never wanted to know what I got. She didn't care whether I was top of the class or bottom of the class. It was about the effort I'd put in. And that's always stuck with me. And now I'm seeing it come out of my mouth. Now I've got young children myself. I will always try really hard. And I think that comes from that. It's always in the back of my mind. Did you try? Because that's all that matters. Whether something is a success or failure, the judgment is, did you try? Because if you didn't try, then it's a failure. If you tried and it fails, then it's your first attempt in learning, which is a great acronym someone gave me recently. So yeah, I would say my mum, actually.
Yeah, well, that's what you hear from the minute you're not able to understand to, then being able to understand. So that's obviously underpinned, and you clearly have tried a lot, like you've done so much. So you've obviously, I always think like you need to create a safe environment for people to fail, for people to excel, because ultimately you don't learn anything from everything going smoothly.
Yeah, and I think also having a support network around you is really a game changer. So I've been really fortunate with the Rising Star Awards. They've connected all of us together. We've got a WhatsApp group.
Amazing.
There's regular texts on there asking for top tips on things, and it's like having a bunch of cheerleaders in your pocket, but also access to knowledge, and you can show the vulnerability of, I actually don't know the answer to that. What would you do? And if I reflect on the career journey I've had, the points at which I've had a strong support network, I've really been able to play at my best. And I'm seeing that a lot more in our industry recently. there's key people doing a fantastic job of bringing individuals together. Katrona Shearer is a fantastic example of that.
She's everywhere.
She's everywhere, but she brings people along, and
she does.
She's a great connector, and she's introduced me to some people who have helped shape my thinking. And there's some interesting work happening at the moment with Gen Plus One, who are really bringing together that networking opportunity for the younger generation. Just think about where those people are going to be in 10 years' time. They've made those connections in a lovely way. They can stay in the industry and already have those. I think there's a real power in coming together, and that's what this industry is really good at. There aren't necessarily the silos of, well, we won't share our approach to this, and I love that.
I think historically they were, historically, even when we first started working with Pure, people never talk about, well, we can't talk about where the data centers are going to be.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so how am I meant to find people if I'm like, I can't tell you where you're going to be based anywhere in the world?
Yeah.
It'll be one of 4 continents, that kind of closed door. It's like, I'm quite good at doing a job with a hand tie behind my back, but not both of them. Like, this is crazy. But I definitely think the doors have opened much more on that, and a massive focus for us at Capstone is around creating communities. So we've got our Capstone mentor community, which I might try and drag you into, Sophie, but anyway, that's definitely just laying the foundation. Calby is part of it. Yeah, but that's been brilliant. And we've got we're about to launch our second cohort of mentors and mentees, and that is part of our commitment to the retention piece. But there's broader than that. There's the broader community piece where, are you being linked up with talent, other talent leaders within the data center sector? Because I've got that on the recruitment side. I'm in a WhatsApp group with, over 200 recruitment leaders. Now that might be your idea of hell, but actually it is, in fact, I mean, some of them, they're completely different sectors, some are very similar, but people are so generous with their wins, their fails, anything that they think might help somebody. I'm on the phone to people all the time sharing things that have gone well for us, or vice versa. And I think that we could do more of that in terms of a peer, whether it's on the engineering side or on the talent side or on the whatever side. I wonder about your views on collective impact in that way.
I think it's brilliant, and the more of it we can do, the better. Shared learning works, and that there's a lot of evidence about how we learn in a peer group, having more sort of transfer of knowledge stickiness. So I am all for getting a group of people together and talking about what works, what doesn't work, and sharing those experiences. It will get us all further faster.
And those little moments of insight from different contexts actually just help us make other connections, thought connections that then help us to steer the thinking in a different way that either solves your immediate problem in front of you, or actually then comes back and helps somebody else in that community. And it's something that the data center world does really well, actually, the whole community piece, I think, and the more of it, the better.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you go to many industry events?
So it's only been a new thing on my radar this year, really. Part of that is that I'm based up north. Part of it is that I've got 2 young children. So they are both blockers to a lot of the great events, are all London based. Yep. I am very often in our London HQ. So when I'm here, if there's something happening and I can make it work, then yes, I do go. This year, an absolute highlight for me was DCAC in Dublin. What an absolute riot time that was. Brilliant. Katrona Shearer invited me up on stage with her for a panel talk.
Amazing.
I also managed to get a tattoo whilst I was there. It was fab.
Was it pure? Was it just pure down, like
no,
just pure DC group? Oh no? Oh.
But we did tease Dawn with that for a moment to say that's what Sophie has done. So I think there's some great events that go on, and I think there's more and more that I'm seeing come up that I would love to be able to go to all of, because this is the difference, isn't it? Us all coming together and knowing each other.
Absolutely.
And sharing those ideas.
Yeah, we're all part of the data center ecosystem, and we've all got value. And we were in Amsterdam last week, Ollie and I, and Ollie was on a panel discussion there about talent, you know, with the CEO of Green Mountain,
Nice,
with Isabella Kemlin over at the Swedish Data Center Authority, and then Sam Wicks from Verne, you know, and it's just all different geographies and expertise, but actually there needs to be some collective thinking in terms of getting the talent right in the industry.
Yeah, especially when we think about the course opportunities there are that bring people in. We're still at a point where we don't have any sort of dedicated data center technician qualification that you can go to a university or do an apprenticeship in. We're getting closer, and I've seen a lot of people supporting that in our industry. But government takes time to put these things through. Curriculums take a long time to come to be. And I think the more as an industry we can support with that, it's not for us to lead, but by all means we can support and say, this is what we need when they are out of those qualifications, the better place we'll be in.
Yeah, and having like higher education, universities, etc., that are invested in that as well. I mean, if you think about how quickly everything's changing, and you think maybe 5 years from now, you know, what's that going to look like? But if you've got that resource in those, you know, university contexts, for example, they're the ones that can help, you know, be a bit more agile with that qualification, with that training, and so on, to help deliver people, you know, when they've graduated and so on, to actually be, you know, ready to kind of come in and make a difference. I mean, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, I think one thing that I'm keen to do in the new year is have a round table so that we can start to talk about some collective impact opportunities. Not going back to my fixer roots, but you know, if I see a problem, it's like killing me not to be able to at least create, you know, some discussion around it. But I really think that there is definitely an opportunity for us to do something around that, because we need to change the narrative on what data centers are and what careers within data centers look like, because obviously I wang on about it at home and my 14-year-old is like, oh my god, that sounds so boring, and I'm like, but you are amazing at maths, you're amazing at science, you are absolutely not a linear person. That's what we need problem solvers and troublemakers like you. Like, that's what we need. But I need to PR it more, so you know,
I really like the problem solvers and troublemakers. That is what we need in this industry. That is what gets you far. So we need to go out there and get more of those.
That's a strap line. Right, there we go. This has got legs, Sophie. This is to be continued. What are we looking for? Troublemakers and problem solvers. Literally, my child was written all over that, both of them. Excellent. So if we look at what we should be prioritizing moving forward from a talent perspective to kind of bring the conversation full circle, what do you think that should be?
As an industry, or in terms of the talent specifically?
Either.
So I think in terms of talent coming into the industry, it's about those softer skills. Are they curious? Are they problem solvers? Are they adaptable? Because you need to be adaptable. This is going to keep changing. For us as an industry, we need to think about roles on more of a skills basis, not just I need an exact replica of the person that I've previously seen in that role. We need to get much better at seeing the transferable skills. But importantly, I think it's asking ourselves, are we paying as much attention to our retention of talent as we are our attraction of talent? Because I don't see that in the broader industry. In Pure, I really do. That's a huge key part of my role, but I don't see versions of me in every business. And you think about the cost of bringing new people in. If everybody's leaving because we're not creating the right environment for them to thrive, then we're wasting money and time.
Yeah, you're losing the investment that you've put in.
Absolutely.
Or you're just investing for somebody else to benefit if they're just going to recycle around the competitors. Yeah,
exactly. And I saw a great quote from Simon Sinek earlier this week. 100% of your customers are people. 100% of your team are people. 100% of your investors are people. So if you don't take the time to understand your people, then you're not going to be a successful business.
Well, that's a mic drop end, isn't it?
Boom.
She's gone.
But it's true.
Oh,
It's those people skills, isn't it? The people skills are what we need. We can learn the technical skills, but it's the people skills that create the differentiator and help people be the absolute top of their game, and therefore businesses be the top of their game.
And it's absolutely the skill that people do not associate with data centers. It's the people. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, hold that thought and let's carry that on in another forum maybe. But Sophie, thank you so much for joining Ollie and I. That has been brilliant, and we've loved hearing your insight and having a podcast series about data centers and talent, and not having you as part of that would have had a big void. So we're really thankful that you've taken the time to talk to us.
That's brilliant.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. It's been great to talk to you both.